Boy oh boy, did I not think we'd be back here so soon. So, obviously my other video about Round the Table has received a lot of, well, attention, right? And I can either concede or I could double down, or maybe do both, right? So starting off, I just want to make this clear. Round the Table is a great product. It's just not as great as what you think, okay? I don't think it's a bad product. I have bought 4 boxes of it, and I would recommend it to anyone starting Flesh and Blood. However, compared to what has been touted about it and what we have gotten, it is not that great of a product to me. Now, originally, this whole discussion was just meant to be a throwaway, right? I just want to voice my opinion about the 100 new cards, because this is plastered several places, right? It's plastered here on the announcement, on Get the Round Table, right? Still more than 100 cards. And of course, on the product listings, on any store that's grabbed just the normal description. The issue with this is, even if you count all the color variants, you count the alt art Quicken, you count everything you can possibly count that is not clearly a reprint in the box, we still only get to 70 cards, right? So we do not have over 100 new cards. Again, by using the same standards offered in the normal way a set is broken down. Each color variation is a new card, and that's fine, but there are not 100 or more in Round the Table. So first off, that point alone was the main emphasis of that video, especially once we think about what the professor himself has been touting. A, these are the most powerful blitz decks to date. Now, that's not a hard bar to cross, now is it? But then he also talks about how this has been over a year in the making, right? A year in the making to figure out how to ship a storage box? No. How to make a playmat? No. How to make 4 decks? You'd think. But it is very evident that the creativity that has gone into each of the decks is a steady decline, starting with Ira, who is definitely the most fleshed out, to Brevrent, then Malady, and finally the professor himself simply being a stable blitz deck of bright lights. Now that is not an issue overall, right? Again, the majority of cards in the professor's deck are in bright lights. Yes, he came out first, so we'll count them. Again, 70, not 100. But overall, I'm yet to sort of see anything that elevates this product to the point of, again, being the most powerful blitz decks to date and being worth more than a year's worth of time to conceptualize. So then we get to the big grievance that everyone has. And weirdly enough, right, we have LSS who are continuing to tout their capability to transition to blitz, right, across the board. We have the Renovating the Table article, and of course the little mentions of certain printed cards in Round the Table being very applicable to blitz, which we see in the way of Red, Bittering Thorns, and of course a lot of the new Guardian cards. However, Malady and the Professor are definitely UPF decks or Bright Light decks. Brevrent across the board is a UPF deck. And then Ira, well, Ira is just, again, probably the best crafted deck in Round the Table. But then, at the same time, it is not necessarily a UPF deck. Now, the way I like to think about it is they represent 4 people at your quintessential table, right? You have the person who brings Ira, the person who brings an above standard deck compared to what everyone else is playing in the hopes of utterly crushing everyone. You have Brevrent, the person who doesn't want the game to end, so they continue to mitigate damage and prolong things. You have Malady, who just sits in a corner and is just happy to be invited. And then, of course, you have the Professor, who every now and then takes a chaotic twist and can shoot or hit everyone at the table. Overall, right, that is an okay concept, but it does toe the line. Is this a UPF product? Is this a Blitz product? Is this a product for you to buy and then transition into whatever you want it to be? While the flexibility there is great, again, that hampers what exactly this product was meant to be, and I will continue to reiterate the year's worth of time that has gone into creating it. Now, I know the professor himself didn't have a hand in any of the decks, but in the case of LSS, I personally see this as disappointing because we have seen the level of creativity that LSS can come up with and the passion they can put into their set design, and that has not been represented well to me in Round the Table. Again, for Ira, beautifully done. For Brevrent, we're starting to dip down. For Malady, there's a concept there, but nothing really fleshed out. And then, once again, the Professor is simply a reskin / slightly easier Teklo Vossen, but overall just a blitz deck that you would normally see with bright lights. Now, in terms of the whole, this is for UPF, well, that would be absolutely fine if it did a lot more UPF things. If we look through the decks, the Professor has 2 UPF style cards. He has the Evo Tekloscope, and of course he has Apocalypse Automaton, both of which you can find and play. So you get 2 UPF interactions, main interactions, and then an ongoing one through the Evo Tekloscope, allowing you to shoot anyone you want. Again, fun, just not enough, right? If this is a UPF product, then I would like to see them really explore UPF interactions, just as they've done with Brevrant, right? Brevrant has the most fleshed out UPF mechanic, but that's it, just him. He has the ability to block, to generate, to further his own endeavors by interacting with other people at the table. And then, similarly, we have that sort of concept with Melody, except it is really not fleshed out. Again, the whole gimmick is just to go into Final Act, and I'm not saying that Final Act needed more support. I'm saying that Melody altogether needed more interactions. To just use your fiddle, play a song, and then that's your turn, is not a fun interaction to me, right? Yes, it does UPF things, but there are so many other possibilities that Melody could have had in UPF. Again, with a year's worth of time invested and the general level of creativity that we have seen from LSS, this is a disappointing deck to me. In a UPF game, you are going to be generating a lot of copper, yet your only payoff is Final Act. Final Act, which requires you to pitch sack, meaning that in UPF, if everyone is taking it seriously, this is not applicable, right? You will burn through your 4 cards at the table because you can attack either person to your left or right? So there is the possibility of double the shutdown that Melody already suffers from. But regardless of Final Act, crowd control is a simple enough tweak. Instead of being pay resources, it could have been pay copper. It fits beautifully thematically. You're paying your bouncer to keep people off your back. And again, it feeds into Melody's basic concept, which is to play songs, generate copper, and use that copper for something other than Final Act. Even Interlude could have been spend a ridiculous amount of copper to prevent anyone from targeting you till your next turn. Would have been perfect for Final Act, would have been able to spend the copper you generate, and depending on how much copper it costs, wouldn't be too overpowered in normal blitz. Now, while Life of the Party and Coax Commotion do sort of fun things, right? Life of the Party is only there because it just fits what Melody is going for, right? It's just a named card that fits Melody. There's nothing really UPF to it. As for Coax Commotion, sure, it's a decent UPF card. But then we also have the plethora of potions, right? That have seemingly been included, mainly Crazy Brew for Life of the Party. These could have been other staple Bard cards. Overall, for Melody, you exclude the songs, right? We get Crowd Control, Interlude, and Final Act, as well as Encore. We get 4 main mechanics outside of just playing songs. There could have easily been the duality to the songs. Songs that benefit everyone at the table, and songs that don't. But not only that, we're playing one song to give everyone else upside, and then to do nothing. Now, I understand. A lot of people have said, well, you must have had a bad time playing this. Maybe. But in all honesty, I can't see any lines straight out of the box that make Melody a fun deck to play at the table, other than just being the observer. And then, of course, we have Ira. Ira is not a UPF deck. This is a blitz-ready deck, meaning that it has a high advantage over everyone else at the table. So, no wonder why they say the new player should play Ira, because the power level of this deck far exceeds that of the other 3, with the Professor or the Guardian somewhat being closer, but a huge drop-off with Melody. Again, this doesn't feel like fun in a box. It feels like something that you can play, and then once you have understandings of all the mechanics, it becomes a disadvantage to play X heroes. Whereas if they had explored a multitude of possible multiplayer interactions, just the simple premise of having X cards that can attack anyone at the table, you now tie in seating. You now tie in the ability to disrupt other players. Just a simple tweak could have extended the UPF interactions greatly, just from thinking about it. The perfect way to play this has seating restrictions, right? Melody does not want to be next to Ira, because Ira will just decimate Melody. Reverend wants to be next to Melody so that he can back up Melody. There is a lack of versatility because of the power levels of the decks. And in all seriousness, even though UPF is a casual game, that doesn't mean everyone's not trying to win. Ira, no real UPF interaction. Melody, play songs and sit in a corner. Reverend, block everyone, do great things, and have the most UPF interaction. Followed by the Professor, who now and then gets to shoot anyone he likes and attack everyone for damage. Again, the backbone is there, it just hasn't been built upon, and because of that, I don't think it's a bad product, but I don't care to label it a great product. So then why? Why is this so well received? Packaging maybe, right? People like the duality of the storage box. I mean, I gushed over binders that came with a storage box. But the more I sort of think about it, right, why is this actually well received? As well received as I should say, right? Because again, it's not a bad product. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad product. But for a year's worth of work, it should have been better. Because looking at everything else on offer from any other 4 Blitz decks, right, even the classic battles, what really differentiates around the table? The endorsement from the Professor, storage box, a singular playmat in a multiplayer environment, a singular unmarked playmat for new players to start their journey, no rulebook, no information other than go to the website and learn to play, no quick start guide, no brief description about any of the decks that actually work mechanically rather than just flavorful. And more importantly, if you were to take out the 4 decks we got, right, if you were to scrap the Professor, Melody, Brevrant, if you were to stick any 4 decks, any 4 Blitz decks into this box, would it make a huge difference? Yes, it would make a little bit of difference because, again, there are some UPF interactions here. But overall, it would still be applicable. Here's your product to play UPF and your starting point to dive into Blitz or Classic Constructed. And for what this product is aiming for, I don't think it should be close. So the only real rationale that I can come to is this is as well received as it is because it fills a gap in the market. This is the product that we want, and this is the first iteration of such a product. So instantly, we think it far exceeds what it actually is. There is no competition, no comparison to have to it, other than the Blitz decks that we have and already have continued to feel a disdain towards their level of real applicability, as well as the classic battles. Although I personally think the classic battles is a significantly better starting point. All I'm trying to say is, what actually makes this special for UPF? Sure, it has a few things going for it, but this is not a UPF-centered product, nor is it a Blitz-ready product. And again, what annoys me most about it is very minor tweaks are all they needed. If each deck was to the level of Ira, then it would be Blitz-ready. If each deck was to the level of Brevrant, then it would be a sensational UPF time. The best description that I've heard for it is fun in a vacuum. And I definitely couldn't agree more. As a standalone idea, it is great. As something to pull out and play here and there, it works for a little bit. But eventually you will want to tweak the decks, you will get sick of having your defined roles, and you will need to tweak it and adjust it. And there are, again, just simple ways that they could have helped to increase the longevity of this product through simple interactions that would have created the same dynamic feel that Brevern has with each other class. Now, in terms of it being a starting point, right? The new player-friendly product, the best thing to grab if you're just a casual starting out. Well, a single-player playmat. It's okay. Again, I'm pretty sure that most of you will agree with me on this point alone, right? That we did sort of want, at the very least, a 2-player mat, right? To make it, again, more applicable to grab a buddy and play. But then also, to me, the no markings on the playmat as something that is casual friendly, right? It's a simple thing that helps new players instantly recognize the board. Speaking of which, talking about quick start and knowing the rules, where are they? No rule book is included in this, right? Unlike classic battles, there is nothing detailing what to do. It is very much grab your 4 friends and make sure one of them can tell you what to do. If you're starting out, if you walk into a game store, well, classic battles is the better go to start around the table. you need to understand. You need to especially understand the UPF interactions, let alone the basic concepts of the game. So was a rulebook really that hard to include? Heck, even just the backsides of tokens, because they've stuck every single token in every single hero. If they stuck on the backsides a little description, if they stuck just little quick start cards into the decks, if they wrote on the back of the box 4 connected little paragraphs that enable you to quick start the game, right? There's lots of ways that more thought could have been put into this to make it, again, a significantly better starting point product, let alone a UPF product or a casual player product. See, in Classic Battles, it has that line, right? Learn to play online. But then it also has dot points and information about each deck in the box, not to mention the actual booklet you get in the box. Heck, they could have even just printed the article about Around the Table and rolled it up in the playmat, right? Just on thin scrap paper, just so someone who walks into a game store, doesn't know where to start, can be suggested Around the Table and doesn't need anything else at all to start their journey. That doesn't seem like a difficult feat, especially for a product that was over a year in the making. But again, I do want to stress, this product is not bad. I just personally think it is a shell of what it could have been. Again, given the creativity, the passion, the level of design that we have seen LSS put into their products, while all the other Blitz decks are curated decks from their sets. They sell the benefit of the set-specific cards that they have passionately thought up. Whereas again, to me, it just feels like each deck is a gradual step down. Ira being the most fleshed out, having a core concept and a easy combo for people to get their heads around, followed by Reverent, who has a, again, simplistic mechanic, block for people, swing for big damage. Then the Professor, who is mostly just a curated Bright Lights deck, followed by Melody, who has something going, but then nothing that really feeds into it, feeds into Final Act or her ability to generate copper. And the whole, well, it's copper, you can pop it. Again, this is UPF. If people pick on you, if people aren't well mannered, if people are playing to win, right, depending on the group, depending on if you just walk up to an event, if your LGS are hosting a casual event, there is just a huge disparity between the decks, depending on which one you get to play. It is fun in a vacuum. It is fun when everyone understands their roles. Don't pick on Melody. Let Melody do some things before you just demolish her. There are viable ways to give the decks one-ups against one another. But again, we get reprints after reprints. 70 of 100 new cards and 30 reprints for a year's worth of time. Altogether, Round the Table is not a bad product. It's certainly not. But for a company that continues to, again, flex its creativity and fun design choices, I honestly can't help but feel that Round the Table is not the best version of itself. They really could have brought something massive to the table instead of, again, 4 Blitz decks with very minor UPF interactions aside from Brevrant. Again, Brevrant is by far the most fleshed out UPF deck and hero. Melody has the beginnings, but nothing to really pay off it. Again, copper to pay for your cards, copper to pay for crowd control, copper to pay for, some other variation of songs that were detrimental. There are ways to easily do this. Instead, all we have is copper generation into Final Act, which in most scenarios won't actually finish off an opponent unless you're one of the last ones standing. And to put it simply, if we get another Round the Table style product, we get something with slightly better decks, more fleshed out mechanics, a better UPF stylization, this will be forgotten. Well, since you made it this far, let's line things up a little bit with some fun, okay? Why don't we just discuss simply some fun interactions and some, little slight interactions that could have made this a better UPF-centered product. For starters, a fun mechanic for the Professor could have been something similar to the majority of other mechs. You boost X card, you get to create, a bomb under any player, right? And they get to then pay resources to pass that bomb around. After it loses X amount of steam counters, it blows up, right? So you don't want to be stuck with the bomb. It feeds into boost. It allows you to interact with everyone at the table. Done. Or boost attacks that allow you to attack anyone at the table. Again, feeds into the general concept that the Professor is going for with his blaster, allowing to be the ranged combatant, being able to pick on anyone at the table. Again, simple, better interaction than just reprint boost, reprint boost, reprint boost. right? Then, Reverence. Well, again, I think Reverent is fantastic, right? Yes, I know the majority of his deck, well, 1/4, is just Chivalry, but then he has an actual hero ability that feeds into it properly. Not to mention the hammer to balance it out, and different ways to influence the board, right? So you can block, you get your might, you get your payoff for being charitable and defending someone else, and then you can turn around and hit them in the face with a big attack or a big hammer. See how it is a proper play loop, right? Your hero ability feeds into Chivalry, Chivalry feeds into the hammer, hammer feeds into your hero ability. Back and forth, back and forth. Generate the might, use it. Again, it's simplistic, but it's been thought out and connected. You could take it a step further. Instead of just protecting and being able to chuck out a block here or there, you could have actual, say, taunts, where players have to target you over other people for a round. But again, to me, Reverence doesn't need tweaking. He is a fun UPF character. Now, Melody, of course, right? Either just better ways to play Final Act. We're generating copper. We don't want to be in red or yellow. The amount of copper you generate in UPF is ridiculous. You play a song, you generate 3 copper. You play Jinglewood, you generate 1. You have the ability to generate 4 copper a turn. Final Act from hand requires 9. Final Act from the arsenal requires 12. You can get the setup for Final Act relatively quickly. You won't be able to KO your opponent unless you chain them together, right? But you can still get it quickly enough. Only problem, you have no way to actually feed off the copper. You have no ways to actually cycle back Final Act and do what you want to do outside of 2 encores. There is different attacks, right, with weaker abilities than Final Act to spend copper. Or if copper just fed into any of these other cards. Again, crowd control. Pay with copper instead of resources. Becomes a powerful block for you to spend your earnings. Interlude. Again, it could pave the way to set up the Final Act if it was something like spend a ridiculous amount of copper. 5, 6, whatever you want it to be, so it's balanced for blitz. But then you can't be targeted for a round. That gives you the little stall to set up for Final Act and to actually make use of copper, right? It's then also adding to the amount of copper you need to generate for Final Act. But you don't even have to lean on Final Act. Again, dichotomy of songs. Benefit songs, other songs. They could have been pay 2 copper. That way you generate 1 copper back in a normal play. You generate more copper back off of UPF, but they do detrimental things instead of positive things. You can make them targeted instead of each other hero. There are so many different avenues that could have been explored with Melody outside of Coast Commotion because it's a UPF card. Life of the Party because it's a girl having a party, right? And then just potions because why not, right? Makes total sense. An AG potion can make up for having red and yellow in the deck. Time skip. Oh, now I can chain my Final Acts together, right? Rather than just say quick step. Sorry, my bad. We're meant to be keeping it fun and light. Ooh, even potions, right? Just a single equipment piece rather than these. That is something like pay X, copper. You can play an item at instant speed. Something like that. Again, would have then fed in, allowed you to do more things. But overall, for being the group hug person, your turn is Jinglewood song, that's me. When instead, it could have been pay copper, give someone an item. Pay copper, do this. Pay copper, do that. And that would have looped it around like Reverence to feed into your hero mechanic outside of just a singular card that is trying to make use of it. Because drawing off a copper is horrible. Especially again, right? If everyone decides to target you for whatever reason, the 2 people on each side, you will never get Final Act off. Because you will never have the cards to stain copper to then play Final Act and it to actually be a Final Act. And then for Ira, right, the simplest thing that I can possibly think of is any sort of combo card that is just, you play this, you may change the chain link target to someone else. Again, we have the UPF ruling, and then this would bypass it. Leave it open for you to start with a small chain on someone, deplete their hand, and then go into the finisher of the chain onto someone else. You can keep the pressure up. You can keep the expectations going. You can have people worrying on the edge of their seats thinking, oh no, am I next? And then, of course, all of them could just benefited from one card that was ranged, right? Building upon hurl daggers or anything like that, or even the professor's headpiece. Just a single attack that allows you to, instead of targeting someone to your left or right, the opposite person on the table. Again, open up the interaction. And overall, I think there's countless ways that this could have been improved for UPF, but they really wanted to toe the line to make sure that they can market it as being a stepping stone to Blitz. Even though you take the Guardian cards, you would never ever use Brethren because it's just a dead ability. You have the Professor, but then the rest of his cards are basically bright lights. So although in this case you get the hero, you don't get the cards. Ira, again, by far the most fleshed out deck. And then Melody. Melody will never truly be applicable to Blitz outside of just a gimmick and meme deck. Trust me, I play her, right? And Fine Like doesn't have to be the payoff. Just even more defensive elements so that you can run a better lineup of attacks. And you, again, capitalize off of the copper, the upside you're giving everyone else. Or scrap it entirely and fully lean into UPF. That's what, to me, would have made this product great. If the UPF product felt like a true UPF style product, rather than this weird amalgamation, where, again, Ira has clearly been the best thought out, followed by Reverence, then Melody, and lastly the Professor is just general boost and a little bit of fun from Bright Lights. And I know a lot of you are still going to disagree with my thoughts and opinions, and that's completely fine, right? I have no issue whatsoever with being wrong. I'm here to have a discussion, to have some dialogue and talk about Round the Table. Tell me why you love it. Tell me the little things you do want to nitpick as well. Or what fun interactions can you come up with? Anyway, thumbs up, thumbs down, up to you. Do what you want. See ya.